Good evening and welcome to the show which TV viewers have unanimously voted the one they most like to record whilst watching Frasier. In the news this week, Lord Irvine denies further allegations of decadence as he tries out his new toothpick. The Metropolitan Police admit it was a mistake to put Michael Flatley in charge of the riot squad. And in Bolton, a top nightclub singer regrets opting for the economy sex change. On Ian Hislop's team, a writer and journalist who on John Major's plane last year gave a whole new meaning to the phrase chemical toilet, Will Self. And with Paul Merton tonight is a journalist and broadcaster who once said, "You can't even let your concentration slip for 15 seconds when you're doing a TV broadcast." Please welcome the presenter of the Today programme. Please welcome John Humphrys. The sooner we start, the sooner we can all congratulate Paul on another well-earned victory. Paul and John, your contribution, please.
So this is the London Marathon. That's the former butler. That's Paul Burrell, is it? Burrell?
And that is Flora Margarine. And that is Earl Spencer.
Yeah. Paul Burrell was in the London Marathon, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Flora is kind of sticky, greasy stuff that you put on your nipples. I'm told to stop getting joggers' nipples. Isn't that? I do have the idea of the game.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
Yes, we carry on, yes.
Earl Spencer, some have said, is a bit of a...
Bit of a tit, follow it through, yeah.
And the purple teddy bear...
Teddy bear's the odd one out because it doesn't have any nipples.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think you've just invented a new round.
Is that all right?
The other connection, I suppose, is that everybody is getting very upset because they are exploiting the memory of Princess Diana. And Earl Spencer, that sensitive bloke who doesn't like to exploit anything, notwithstanding museums and pop concerts and everything else, is getting very upset himself. I think that's what it is. And I think we're all on his side.
It's this guy Paul Burrell, isn't it? The butler. I mean, they put the butler in charge of it. I mean, you know, if the butler was, you know, if he knew anything about anything, he wouldn't be a butler, would he? I mean, he's polishing other people's shoes, creasing other people's trousers, you know. And then they tell
him yours does.
No, I have a valet.
And who was it that offered him a house recently?
Who a house?
Offered the butler a house.
Who offered him a house?
Grateful Nation?
Grateful Dead.
Grateful Dead.
Really? Yeah.
Not that far off, it was Bryan Adams, actually.
Oh, yes, in Chelsea.
And what was the Queen's angle on it?
I hate all of them.
That's not precisely what she said.
I know, that's my angle.
She said everything to do with Diana is terribly, terribly complicated.
Really?
But I think the subtext was probably what you just said. And what, you mentioned the rock concert, any idea?
I just mentioned the rock
concert. Yes, I mentioned that you mentioned
did.
the rock concert. Yes, no, the rock concert actually is going to feature Jimmy Nail, Chris de Burgh, Julian Lloyd-Webber and Cliff Richard.
Coolio.
Are tickets still available?
£39 to get in and £139 to get out. This is indeed Earl Spencer's suggestion that the Diana Fund be wound up. Products wanting to use Diana's name as an endorsement include alcoholic drinks, dog food and garden manure. Clearly just crude attempts to cash in on her memory. A point well made, incidentally, in the Have I Got News for You People's Princess video. Ian and Will, roll up.
That's Keith Halliwell.
He didn't have that moustache before he became drug czar. That's a copy of The Independent.
Now, this is for kids, how to do it.
How to do it, yeah. Bring it around, show them what to do.
Who's that? Is that the staff of The Independent?
That's an editorial meeting. They're exchanging ideas by semaphore. I think it's something to do with the government's war on drugs. I think it's always a bad idea to conduct a war against an inanimate object. You know, you're always doomed to fail. You look at the Chinese government fell over a war on tables. There were still tables standing at the end of it. But this government's very confident in that.
Can someone call Keith Halliwell, please?
It's doomed. Doomed. I didn't get the bit with the person rolling up the bit of paper with the stuff in it. I didn't get that bit of it at all. But
That's the white paper.
that's the white paper. I see. That's right. Yeah.
So which newspaper editor, famous newspaper editor, has been leading the legalised cannabis campaign?
Well, I believe Ms. Rosie Boycott, formerly of The Independent and now, I believe, of The Express, has been involved in this campaign. Though it may have sat uneasily at The Independent, I think the readers of The Express must be about to internally combust. You know, without the aid of any narcotics, at the prospect of their beloved organs swinging over the herbaceous border.
You're a big fan of hers?
She sacked you, didn't she, Will?
She didn't sack me. She egregiously shafted me in a most vicious and unprincipled way. And, I mean, words really cannot describe what I would like to do to her. Perhaps some outtakes from a late Kurosawa movie.
But otherwise still friends? So why has Blair been blamed for being hypocritical about all this?
Well, he likes having people who take drugs round to number 10, and then he says, "Don't do it, kids. Isn't Liam Gallagher groovy?" Well, I think he probably says groovy, because he's about as cool as I am.
No, he's cooler than you.
Thank you. No, you're right, he is.
Yes, it is the government's new war on drugs, which is to be spearheaded by so-called drug czar Keith Halliwell. Mr. Halliwell denies being ignorant about the drug scene and intends to clamp down hard on users. He says that young people caught taking ecstasy, for example, should be forced to stay in a warehouse overnight, drinking only water and doing repetitive exercise. Paul and John, a headline on its way for you. Upper House looks down under.
Oh. The House of Lords looking at Australia.
Australia, possibly.
Yes.
Yes. Or it could be. It could be the termites.
Could also be, I suppose, couldn't it, that members of the House of Lords who will have nothing to do very soon when all these great constitutional reforms go through are going to Australia. Maybe that's the idea.
Or it could be members of the House of Lords looking at their underpants.
Or anybody's
Underpants.
Yes.
That's a pathetic way to justify the existence of a bicameral parliament, to have the upper house solely engaged in examining their underpants. I mean, if I were in any position of power at all, I'd put a stop to it, except possibly the gussets.
Is that the Hampshire gussets?
Yes, sure.
I know them well.
You know them, don't you? I've seen you at the
lovely.
gussets.
I played croquet on their lawn.
Yes.
It probably has slightly more to do with termites.
Termites,
Termites.
Yes, well, it's the House of Lords looking at these termites because apparently they've arrived now in Cornwall or something and they're going to eat their way all the way up England and they want to wage a war on termites. Tough on termites, tough on the causes of termites.
And how are they intending...
Exactly.
How are they
Good point.
exactly intending waging this war on termites?
Importing anteaters from Australia. Or termite eaters. Terminators, in fact. It's another word. It's how Australians pronounce terminators, termite eaters.
Echidna, they're called.
No, I mean it.
And where are they? You said Cornwall. It's in fact North Devon, yes. The precise location has been kept secret, although anyone house hunting in Saunton should look there. This is the termite debate in the House of Lords this week, in which it was suggested that Australian anteaters be imported to see off a plague of termites. The Australian anteater is a hybrid mammal and the result of evolutionary isolation and freak mutations, so it should actually fit in rather well in North Devon. And finally, Ian and Will, the online gorilla.
I think this is a story about a gorilla who can be taught to via a computer, and I think the gorilla is called Coco. Isn't it interesting how gorillas always have names like Coco?
Or Gary Butler.
Yeah, why don't they give gorillas more dignified names? That's what I want to know. But
Susan.
Susan would be a lovely name.
Lovely name.
There's this gorilla called Coco, and this gorilla is so smart that it can be taught to. I don't think it's via the net. I think it's just via computers. It's sort of it can respond via a keyboard.
Well, you talk to it and ask it questions.
Yeah, and it responds by hitting either ideogrammatic symbols or, in fact, the keys of the computer. I can't remember, since the story was in a tabloid newspaper, the actual intelligence quotient of the person who wrote it was probably lower than Coca.
So what do people ask it?
All sorts of things.
Like what?
Anything they like.
Is it possible to increase the public sector borrowing requirement without increasing taxes? That sort of thing?
Yeah.
What is the capital of Albania? That kind of stuff.
Why are we here? Does it do philosophy?
No, it doesn't.
Would you like a banana? I bet it does that one. Who was the best Doctor Who?
Why is there one monopoly commission?
This is Coco the gorilla, who logged onto the internet and conducted...
I'll tell you, those zookeepers earn their money. Straight in there with a dustpan and brush.
I'll rephrase that. He joined the internet and conducted a 45-minute interview. The gorilla only communicates through sign language, but still enjoys human pastimes such as watching television, although her enjoyment of Channel 4 racing is continually spoiled by John McCreerick making obscene sexual suggestions. So, at the end of that round, the only striking thing about the scores is their similarity, being as it is 4-all. Before the hideous prospect of round 2, the visual delights of our caption competition. And we'll be back for their thoughts once they've had some. Round 2 is the odd one out, because unlike others, it's occasionally entertaining. Paul and John, your surprise package includes John Major, Jim Callahan, Sarah Fitzpatrick, and John Humphrys.
Logging on.
Logging on.
You're not well up on the internet, are you?
Yeah, well, I am now. Yeah. It'll have nothing to do with the fact that two of them know, because the third hasn't. One of them's got his finger up his nose, the other's got his finger in his ear, and I haven't. But she hasn't either, so...
Well, we don't know what to have a finger anyway. We don't know what she's doing.
It's very true. I think it has to do with education, because she is on University Challenge. Otherwise, her name... She's either that or a convict, because they do have that. But I suspect she's on University Challenge. Neither John Major nor, I think, Jim Callahan, and I know not me, went to university. Is that it?
Is the right answer?
Oh, yes, well done. Very good.
May I just say, and this is not a political comment, because one's not allowed to make those in the responsible position that I occupy, you understand?
I realise that.
What's that? Sitting next to me.
I miss John Major. The unpredictability of John Major. I mean, you more or less know what you're going to get, don't you, from this current lot? I mean, they're on message and online and all that. John Major, you never quite knew, and I did ask him once when he'd sort of momentarily forgotten that he was leading the party and ran against himself for the job. Do you remember? I said, it was like being under pressure, and he said, well, when your back is against the wall, there is only one thing to do, and that is turn around and fight.
I think we all miss him now.
Yeah.
Yes, you correctly identified Sarah Fitzpatrick as the odd one out. Why has she been in the news apart from...
Well, the Sun tried to get her to pose topless
right.
to show off her intelligence. And she said no to the Sun. She's not interested.
She's quite clearly got two enormous brains hidden under her top. Yeah. Or maybe it's one brain with two lobes.
Yes, well done. The answer is that none of them have been to university apart from Sarah Fitzpatrick. John Major was recently offered £100,000 to do a TV commercial, although he turned it down, saying no matter how much they offered, he'd never eat a Cadbury's flake that way. Ian and Will.
You didn't take the job, did you?
No, I didn't do that one. No, sadly. Didn't offer it me. So you're for...
John Major getting offered ads before you.
Apparently.
God, talk about washed up.
Yeah, you're being hard on him. Your four legends in their own living room are Richard Baker, Julian Lloyd-Webber, Leslie Garrett, and Mick Hucknall of the popular singing outfit Simply Red.
Ah, yes, Simply Red.
fine combo.
As Mick Hucknall had a Cadbury's chocolate flake airbrushed out.
Well, yes, I don't know if it was Cool Britannia, possibly.
In what way?
Did they all go to a reception at number 10?
Or
Recent
Buckhouse, possibly.
Apart from
Apart from Mick Hucknall, who didn't?
Who was serving the drink.
is the wrong answer.
Can we have the clue?
Yes, the clue is that both you and Ian have written about this in recent weeks.
Oh, the proms.
It's something that neither of you have much time for.
Ah, Muzak! Got it. Muzak. We've got a point.
Well
Muzak. Right, now that's...
Well, Humphrys led a campaign against Muzak in
Right.
lifts and
Everywhere.
bars and hotels.
Humphrys has, yeah.
John Humphrys has, sorry.
Right.
That's better.
Humphreys, I always called him. He was my fag at school.
I polished his head.
You should be aware that there's more than one way of taking that phrase.
Particularly at my school.
So it was true then.
Head boy had a different meaning altogether. It was more of an order.
Well, you're virtually
But we
there.
didn't get a point,
we get
because
points, do
we
we?
got...
Okay.
Well, yeah, because I got music.
Oh, you did actually.
Don't
Well
let
done.
them forget.
Because both of you have written about how much you hate it,
Yes.
haven't you?
We have.
What don't you like about it exactly?
Because it numbs your brain and dulls your senses, and you end up like Coco the gorilla, without the vocabulary. Oh.
Oh, panpipes. I love panpipes.
Sort of soothing, I think.
That's very nice. Can we just all sit here and listen?
Do you know there was a guy, I saw a guy being interviewed on television a few years ago who was the head of the Muzak Corporation in America. He committed suicide. You wonder why that should be amusing, but it is.
Yeah. Good, so it works.
Is it the end of this question yet?
Yes, it is. You can have a point for that. Mick Hucknall is the odd one out, as all the others are patrons of Pipe Down, the campaign against Muzak. After Julian Lloyd Webber criticised the lack of classical music on GMTV, a spokesman defended their programme's content, saying, "We did have Vanessa May on last week. Mr. Lloyd Webber may think she's a bimbo, but Lorraine Kelly was very impressed." And there's no finer musical ear in show business. Which chorus of disapproval brings us to the end of this particular movement, and for those following the score, Paul and John are hitting the high notes, leading as they do 7-4. It's almost a year, of course, since that famous night when the country witnessed an historic victory as Ian won a series. Coincidentally, Labour have also been in power for 12 months, and so we look back now at that momentous period, courtesy of our brand new all-original format, the Rock and Roll Year. A selection of ministerial embarrassments to identify via a cryptic visual clue and an appropriate chart topper from the year's fave raves. Paul, your first Labour pain.
I believe in miracles. Where you from? You sexy thing, you. I believe in miracles.
Well, the only clue worth its name is the black bin liners. Because this is Robin Cook getting caught out. She was staying in his flat and he was coming out pretending to take the bin liners out, and he was feeding her meter.
She being gay.
Well, when I say feeding her meter, I mean he was actually... I actually mean that he was putting money in the slot.
And the music that we heard?
The music that we heard was You Sexy Thing, Hot Chocolate.
He wooed her with hot chocolate.
Did he?
No, I just made that up.
Otherwise known as Coco.
After his wedding this month, Robin Cook told The Times that Gaynor and I are thrilled and excited about our future life together, as he swept her off to Belgium for a trade ministers' conference. John, your magic moment?
I
Single mums, I suspect, or lone parents, as we have to describe them now. And there was a modest little fuss because it became clear in the early stages of this government that its policy on lone mums was to flog them soundly and send them off to Australia.
I thought they were going to execute them all.
That's after they've gone.
Right.
No.
That was the climb down.
That was
And which minister was largely responsible? Who took the rap?
the Honourable Harriet Harman.
Yes. And who gave her a particularly hard time on Radio 4, John?
Now that's a difficult one.
It did lead to a Labour spokesman actually describing something as the John Humphrys syndrome.
Problem. I hate to correct you, Chairman.
Oh, right.
Problem.
And what is that exactly?
The John Humphrys problem is that when Alistair Campbell writes out my questions for me, I don't always get them in the right order. Alistair wrote to The Guardian a letter about me, but it was very impressive because he said in the letter, John Humphrys is not the Queen Mother.
You were in doubt before then, weren't you? I've heard about it. Your Queen Mother complex.
You see,
I've just blown 50 quid on a bet.
Ian, your scattered pictures.
This was Bernie Ecclestone, who runs Formula One, and he gave £1 million to the Labour Party, and the Labour Party decided that they would ban tobacco advertising, but not on Formula One. And everyone said, is there any connection between these two events? And Tony Blair said no, and gave Bernie his money back. So Bernie got the decision he wanted and his money back, which is brilliant.
It is. The Labour Party seems to be becoming these sort of Marks and Spencers of the political world.
Yes.
A spokesman for the tobacco lobby argued at the time that smoking in moderation wasn't necessarily bad for your health, nor did it stunt your growth, and Bernie Ecclestone was the first to agree. And lastly, Will, your memories are made of this.
Now the drugs don't work, they just make you worse, but I know I'll see your face again.
I have a suspicion, because of the presence in the final frame of Mr. Piers Morgan, the editor of the Daily Mirror, that it's about drugs.
This was the wonderful example of the Daily Mirror accusing someone else of selling shit.
I think you should apologise, actually. You have to refer to it as the Mirror, not the Daily Mirror.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Morgan sent out an undercover reporter to meet with a young man who I will not name, in accordance with my own sense of honour, who was then persuaded into offering this reporter some stock product, and was subsequently busted. And this young man is unfortunately, I mean, through no fault of his own, is unfortunately related to a member of the government, but through no fault of his own.
All right,
Mention
overcome
his
your
dad.
scruples, name him.
Mention his father. That's
He's
what we really
Jack
need.
Straw's son.
Ooh. Well, I think that'll identify him.
Yes. And how did the rumours start?
Somebody phoned me up, actually.
I think they just found out from someone in the pub and then sent this sort of blonde reporter down there to say, hello, big boy, fancy a nice time, got any dope?
Yeah.
That subtle technique of the Mirror.
Well, it works with me every time.
The story that the Cabinet Minister's son had been arrested for dealing in cannabis was broken on Christmas Eve. Jack Straw first became suspicious when he saw that his son's Christmas list included king-size Rizzlers, a Hubble Bubble pipe, and a large bar of Cadbury's Fruit and Nut. Which fading memories bring this 90s revival bang up to date with Paul and John still moving on up, leading as they are 13-9. For the final round, it's always nice to welcome back an old favourite, but we have to play Missing Words instead. A handful of headlines to complete, including an unknown number or more from this week's guest publication, the unmissable Fish Meal Update.
I used to write for that. I know, it's the Observer. Stupid me.
Let's off with Queen is dragged into what?
Is this the King's Head? Which is a pub, not a sexual practice.
He's dragged into a row over the Abbey organist.
New row is correct, but over Olympics.
Oh, she's always being dragged into something.
It's over who should perform the opening ceremony, in fact.
It's lighting a big thing. It should be Princess Margaret, really. Yeah. Big lighter.
Huge fag should run along with it. Light up another fag.
Tick to tick. Yeah.
All the way around the world.
Lighted fag pass around the business.
And a huge ashtray at the end.
Next, bees called up to fight what?
Killer ants. Termites from Australia. Very small soldiers from Burma.
None of these things.
Wasps. White Anglo-Saxon Protestants. Fish. Fish meal, yeah.
Fish meal.
Nothing to do with
Fish meal products.
It is in fact chemical weapons.
Isn't it always the same story?
Next, what for the next millennium?
Fish meal. Got to be. Hasn't come up yet.
Is the right answer. Next, huge support for what?
Kate Winslet.
Fish meal.
Is the right answer.
Just keep saying fish meal.
And finally, Radio 4 may stop what?
Fish meal. Oh, this was the playing the national anthem on the Queen's birthday.
Queen,
birthday anthem.
Birthday anthem is the right answer. Yes. All of which means that at the end of tonight's grubby bout of mudslinging, this week's Scum of the Earth are Ian and Will with 10, while this week's Upper Crust are Paul and John with 17. So congratulations to our winners, who in the long-established tradition of University Challenge will now have the chance to appear topless in the sun. But before they steam off, a mercifully brief return to our caption competition.
It's New Labour, New Caribou.
Irish swimming team deny being on steroids.
Flash flood kills Father Christmas.
And I leave you with news that there's evidence that Tony Blair is going to extreme lengths to cover up his bald spot. In London, Christopher Biggins prepares to sue his dietitian. And in Washington, White House advisors express concern as Bill Clinton buys a new pet fish. Good night.
Sparks about to fly in Newsnight in 5 minutes. John Prescott, Ken Clark, spin doctors and cartoonists, all with a view on Labour's first year.